And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we're talking about the Chicago Bulls working out two potential first-round picks in this upcoming draft in Carter Bryant and Danny Wolf. Next, we're going to be looking at some second-round sleeper players that the Chicago Bulls might want to take a look at in this upcoming NBA draft. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. So make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as the Chicago Bulls work out Carter Bryant and Danny Wolf. Do they have some serious interest in both of these players? And so if you want to go take a look at this, you can go over to Hoops Hype. This is where you can see the workout tracker for every team. And so you get a chance to see exactly who each team has worked out. And so when you go in there, you see that the Chicago Bulls now have Carter Bryant. They also have Danny Wolf included on the list. Before we had talked about this, it was only Asa Newell and Drake Powell were the players that were notable that could potentially be in the first round. And so now you have two players that are looking to potentially be in the first round with Danny Wolf and Carter Bryant. In fact, I just looked at the recent ESPN mock draft, and it has Carter Bryant at number 10, and it has Danny Wolf slated to go number 22 to the Atlanta Hawks. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and start with each prospect, and we'll start with Carter Bryant. And so Carter Bryant is a very intriguing prospect at 6'8", 225. He's only 19 years old. And so when you look at the numbers, I think that you see a player that doesn't wow you in that factor. But when you look at the highlights, I mean, you see a player that really has some upside here. And so he definitely is raw, and he's definitely going to need some development. But let's go first into the numbers. 6.5 points, 0.9 with the steals, 1 block a game, 1 assist a game, 4.1 rebounds, 69.5% from the free throw line, 37.1% from three, and then he also shot 46% from the field. And I want to put out there that he did come off the bench for the Wildcats, and so he did not start for the Arizona Wildcats. And so when you look at the things that he does well, I think the first thing that I love about Carter Bryant is his motor. I think that he plays with a ton of effort on both ends of the floor. And I love the fact that I'm talking about both ends of the floor and not just one end of the floor, which means that with that high motor, he could potentially turn into a two-way type of player. But again, he's going to have to get to that upside. But I like the fact that he has the high motor. And I've said this before with the Chicago Bulls, it's also about getting this team to a better identity to where you can start winning some games. It's not all just about the stats. You do need that, but you need this team to turn into a winning type of mentality. And I just love the motor that you would get with Carter Bryant. And so the next thing for him, when you look at what he can do defensively, I mean, he has the size, he certainly has the strength, and he has the quickness there to become a very good defender in the NBA. However, he's going to have to get a bit more better with the attention to details and the fundamentals and things like that that comes into player development. But he definitely shows some upside when you look at his defensive clips and things like that. He looks like a player that could really guard multiple positions. When it comes down to the offensive end of the floor, there's a lot of things that I like about him. And so, number one, I thought that he was a good throw-ahead passer, and that's huge, especially for the Chicago Bulls that want to get out and run, because we know that this new system definitely works for the Chicago Bulls. So you want to continue to add to that. And so that is something that the Chicago Bulls are definitely rumored to want to take a look at in this upcoming NBA draft. They're looking at the fit. And so Carter Bryant could definitely fit with that up tempo that the Chicago Bulls want to have. And next, I think he's terrific off the ball. And so I think that for him, he sets great screens. I think he's a terrific cutter, and that is going to lead to some success, especially when you're playing with Josh Giddey, who loves to pass the basketball, right? That's one of his superpowers, to go along with rebounding and getting downhill. And so he would fit in just fine filling the lane and being a cutter off of just the type of movement that you're going to get up top with Josh Giddey and Coby White coming downhill. And so I think that he would be a plus there. Next, he's a pretty good spot up shooter, even though I know that that's a little bit of a question mark because he did really catch some fire there towards the end of the season. But I think he showed enough consistency that shows you that he could really be a 3-and-D type of player at the next level with some athleticism. So we'll give him the spot up shooting. I think that that is something that he could definitely do here, especially when you see the 37.1% from three. Now, when you look at the weakness for him, I just talked about the defense. He needs to get a little bit better with the attention to detail there in the fundamentals, but the shot creation's got to get better. And I think mainly that comes down to his handle, being comfortable shooting it off the dribble, then also too being more of a creator to shake loose in his own individual offense. And so that is something that he would have to work on. But again, coming to the Chicago Bulls, you already have some good ball handlers with Josh Giddey and Coby White out there, and then assuming that you still have Lonzo Ball to come off the bench. And so there will be some players that can set the table for him, but for him to take that next step as a player in the NBA, he is going to have to be able to be a bit better off the dribble, and then just being creative and getting to his own shot that way. And so next, I wanted to talk about Danny Wolf. And so with Danny Wolf, he obviously provides something that the Chicago Bulls need, because you're talking about size at 7 foot 250. I love that. And so the Chicago Bulls definitely need some help up front. But I thought his numbers were solid. 13.2 points a game, 1.4 blocks a game, 3.6 assists, shot 59.4% from the free throw line. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. And then he shot 33.6 from three and 49.7 from the field. All right. So what I like about Danny Wolf at the center position is, number one, he can provide some floor spacing for you at the center position. And so I'm not saying that I want my center to just be able to sit out and shoot 3-point shots, but I do like that aspect about Vooch. But I think that Danny Wolf, he can definitely get inside and he can score that way, because that leads me to the next point here. And so talked about the floor spacing because he can knock down shots, but his footwork is pretty solid in the post. I think that he has some footwork to where he can be a bit tricky to guard in the post, can definitely be a bit slippery down there. So I like that about Danny Wolf, that he can put his back to the basket and get crafty that way. And also too, probably if you give it to him around the free throw line, I think that he has enough kind of footwork and maneuver to kind of get some space to get to his shot that way. So I like that about him. Next, talking about that, I like his handle. You know, for a center, I think it's solid. It's not anything that's elite, but you would trust him handling the basketball at the top of the key in the handoff situation and putting the ball on the deck and getting to a space on the floor. And so I think that he has a solid handle that way. He can get to either shoulder as well with that handle. So I do like that. Next with him, when you talk about it as far as defense is concerned, like the defense, to me, I think he's a player that kind of lives for the contact. And I wonder about that as far as like, would he be able to not get into too much foul trouble? And so that's one of the things that I wonder about. But I think that he does use his length pretty well on the defensive end. So I think he would be a solid addition right there. And then next, you know, when you start to take a look at the weaknesses for me, it starts with the fact that he's just not that quick. And so athleticism, not that good. I mean, I think that it's definitely, just an upgrade to what Vooch is athletically. So you would get a little bit more, but still, I don't know if he's necessarily going to be the greatest when it comes to getting out and switching on players and things like that, because he's not as quick. The next thing for him, the turnovers. I think that he really struggled with the turnovers. He will take some risk passing out of the double, even though he has like a good feel for the game. And so he definitely has to get better there. The free throw percentage is something that he certainly must get better at, especially if they are going to foul him. He needs to make teams pay, especially if you want to stay on the floor. But when you're talking about effort and going after it, then Danny Wolf is that type of guy, much like Carter Bryant. We're talking about guys that can change the identity for the Chicago Bulls, which is why I like both of them. And I like the thinking that the Chicago Bulls are really going in this direction here with both of these players, because with both of these players, they provide something that the Bulls need. And I think that when you look at a player comp for me, I think of a guy like a Luke Garza that plays for the Timberwolves. I think that, man, he's got a lot more energy than him. And I think that he can be a guy that can be more impactful than Garza has been. But remember, he was very good in college. And so I got that. I think you can see a little bit of the Joker in him with the way that he can be crafty and things like that, especially with the step back threes and stuff like that. And so he's an interesting prospect. And I think it's something certainly that the Bulls should take a look at. I think that a pick 12 might be a bit high for Danny Wolf, but again, I like the thinking here. And when it comes down to Carter Bryant, I meant to put his player comparison out there. And so for him, I think he's more like Andre Iguodala. I think that he's definitely that type of player. And remember, Iguodala, especially when he got to the Golden State Warriors, this is a player that could knock down threes. He was good as far as getting out and running the floor. He's terrific off ball. Defensively, he's great. Like, there's so many different things that Iguodala does. And I could see that being there for Carter Bryant. And once again, for Danny Wolf, I see him more like a Luke Garza type of player that plays for the Minnesota Timberwolves, but a lot better here. And so next, I wanted to move into the second round gems that the Chicago Bulls might want to take a look at. So if you go over to this article on ESPN.com, this came out 2 days ago. It still has the Chicago Bulls selecting Derek Queen at number 1, but number 2, they have the Chicago Bulls taking Sion James at pick number 45 out of Duke. And so, look, he's an interesting pick. And I think that if he pans out, I think that he could be definitely a solid defender, especially when we look at the player comp that I have for him. But before we get to that, just with the numbers with him, he is a 6'5" forward. He had a 39.5 vertical leap, looked pretty good in the scrimmages there. Doesn't really have the best wingspan. And so that's one of the things that I would be concerned about when you start to talk about weakness for him. He has an 8'4" standing reach, 218. He was a senior, so he is an older prospect, and he transferred over to Duke. 8.6 points a game, 0.8 with the steals, 0.3 with the blocks, 4.2 in the rebounds, 81% from the free throw line, 41.3 from three, and 51.6 from the field. And so what I love about him is that he got better in college. Like, he went from 28% all the way up to 41.3%. And then also, too, from the field goal percentage, 43.1 all the way up to 51.6. And so that is terrific anytime you're talking about an increase. And I like that with him. And so when you look at the characteristics, I think that he is a player that really could be special as far as guarding multiple players and multiple positions. And so I think that his calling card is going to be defense. I think that he is definitely going to be defensive minded, and he could turn into a 3-and-D type of player. I think that he plays with a lot of high motor. He's a physical type of player as well. And I like the fact that he is a spot up shooter too. And so I think that he could be versatile too, because he's played a little bit of the point guard, he's played a little bit of the 2, and he's also kind of played a little bit of the 3 when you look at what he did for Duke. And so he's got the strength, he's got the length, he's got the agility on the defensive end. The weakness for him, shot creation. He is not the type of player that is going to go out and create a lot of shots for himself. So I think if he wanted to take it to the next level as a player, he would have to do that. Handle is not as great as well. And so that kind of goes into shot creation. Right now, he's just the standstill type of shooter. So again, he's going to be a guy that's going to make you pay on the not hitting the rotations and things like that. And, I think that that's where it is with him. He's going to have to get better to kind of unlock his offense. But when I look at the player comparisons, he reminds me of a Lou Dort that plays for OKC. I could see him getting to that type of player. And also, too, he reminds me of Aaron Naismith. I think that I see a lot of that in him as well. And so that's why I'm like, if you're looking for, a defensive-minded type of guard/forward, then Sion James, might be a terrific pick here for the Chicago Bulls. And so lastly, as an added bonus, another player that I think the Bulls might want to take a look at if they're looking to reset the deck at the guard position and /wing position, I think it would be his teammate in Tyrese Proctor. I like his game a lot. I think that Tyrese Proctor, for me, he has a lot of upside. So he's only 6'4", but he has a 6'7" wingspan. He has a 8 and a 4 standing reach as well. 36.5 was his vertical, which is one of his weaknesses. He doesn't have, a ton of athleticism at that position like you'd like. And so still 36.5, not bad with that. And then when you look at the numbers, 12.4 points per game, zero point 0.8 with the steals, 2.2 assists, 3 rebounds a game, 68% from the free throw line, 40.5 from three, 45.2 from the field. And so, look, I like the fact that his numbers have shown that he can be a better free throw shooter. In fact, that his first year with Duke, 87.1. So the potential is there. When you look at his three-point shooting, he went from 32% up to 40.5%. I like his shot mechanics. It looks pretty smooth. He's very confident there. And then from the field, he went from 38.1% up to 45.2. And so again, you're seeing a player that, one, has shown you potential, and two, he's also showing you some growth. And so I like that about him. And according to his Yahoo draft profile, one of the things that they mentioned is that Synergy shows that he shot 37.2 off catch and shoot threes. He shot 40.5% off the dribble jumpers for threes. And then he was at 52.9 on pull-ups from two. And so this is a player that is crafty. He can definitely get to his own shots. He will make you pay if you give him some space or whatnot. And then when you look at just some of the characteristics here with him, high basketball IQ. And so what does that mean? In relation to the Chicago Bulls, again, if they were going to reset the deck a little bit, you're moving on from a player like Lonzo Ball. And then also, too, you're not bringing back Trey Jones. I think that what you would get with Tyrese Proctor is a mix of those two players. Now, I'm not saying that he's one of the other, but he has those characteristics, especially with the basketball IQ. He will find you on the offensive end. He's pretty crafty as a passer. He understands what's going on defensively and where his assignments are. So I love that about him. And he plays big in moments. I think that he definitely is a guy that is fearless out there, plays with a ton of confidence. And so I like that. That's, again, what we're talking about with the identity, changing the team that way. And then, just as far as offense is concerned, I think that he had one of the better ratings in the ACC last year. And so this is a guy that's got it done at a high level on that team with the star power that he played with. And so that lets you know that if he plays alongside of other great players, he will be able to mesh with them defensively, plays hard. I think he can play the passing lanes and things like that, which is why that leads me to one of my player comparisons for him, which we're going to get to in a moment. But the weakness for him, 49.3% at the layups that he converted there last season. That was according to a Synergy stat that was in his Yahoo Sports profile. So he's got to get better as a finisher at the rim. And then it talks about his first step and leaping ability. So I just talked about that with the vertical. But as far as the player comparison, for me, he reminds me of Spencer Dinwiddie. That used to play for the Chicago Bulls at one point in time, moved on to the Nets and then the Mavs. But he also reminds me of Dyson Daniels. And so that's why, when we're talking about defensively playing the passing lanes and things like that, I think he can really use his length, and he could be a pleasant surprise for the Bulls on the defensive end, and he can already come in and knock down some shots as well. So I think that he would certainly provide just an added punch off the bench for the Chicago Bulls. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here, what do you guys think about these second round sleepers? Again, I'm saying that Tyrese Proctor would be a player that maybe the Bulls would want to take a look at if they are looking to reset their backcourt / wings here. Same for Sion James. I think that he could be a player that could convert to a Lou Dort type of player. And then when you're talking about the two first round selections, possibly here, I had Danny Wolf looking like a Luke Garza type of player, a mix of Garza and the Joker for me. And then when you look at Carter Bryant, I think that this is a player that very much reminds me of Andre Iguodala. And so I think that he would be an interesting fit here for the Chicago Bulls. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here, do the Chicago Bulls pick up either of these players in the first round? Do they go a different direction? Do you like the thinking that is going on with the Chicago Bulls by bringing these guys in? And then also to let me know what you guys are thinking about these second round sleepers as well. And so as we always say, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.